And welcome to another episode of the Don't Argue with the Facts podcast. I'm your host, Noah Love, and today we're going to be talking and kind of previewing college football. Yes, college football, we have now hit the mark, the benchmark. It is 50 days. We are 50 days away from that first kickoff, first Saturday. And what we're going to be talking about is we're going to go through a list of contenders that I feel can win the national championship. Now, this is very early. It's July. Obviously, there are going to be there's going to be some teams I think that will emerge that we may not see coming, but when that happens in October or whatever the case may be, November, we'll talk about it. But this is just my, I don't want to say way too early, but preseason national title contenders. I will give you the list and then I'll go one by one and tell you why. But without further ado, let's get into it. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Okay, this is my list of national championship contenders for college football. Three of these teams I put down, they have maybe in parentheses. So here we go. But here are just my, I think, definite Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, and Indiana are my six that I think will definitely be national title contenders, barring a whole lot of injuries and suspensions and other stuff. I have three more that are maybes. USC is a maybe. Miami is a maybe, and Ole Miss is a maybe. I'm going to tell you why these nine teams I feel like can compete for a national championship. Let's start with Notre Dame. Notre Dame returns over 70% of their production. They're going to be a team on the mission. They have a favorable schedule. You look at CJ Carr, you look at his development going into year two. Obviously, you have some questions about the running back position, but outside of that, you look they're loaded. They're loaded on the line of scrimmage. They're loaded in the secondary. I told you, a Marcus Freeman led team is always going to be loaded in the back end. It's been that way since he's gotten there and took the position. So I think they are a viable championship contender this upcoming season. I do think, obviously, a lot of guys that were on the team last year, I feel like this will feel this what happened at the end of last season will feel them, and I believe they'll be a good team. Also, they just if you look at their schedule, you ain't it's not great. It's not a great schedule. You start the year with Wisconsin. It's not the same Wisconsin. Then Rice, then Michigan State. Michigan State's got a new coach, Fitzgerald. Then you've got Purdue, North Carolina, Stanford. BYU will probably be your toughest game in that. And then you've got Navy, Miami, which is no doubtly your toughest game of the season. Boston College, SMU, and Syracuse, right? So you're playing basically an ACC schedule. That's basically what they're playing here. They're playing an ACC schedule, but they're not in the ACC conference. Money, but you look at the schedule. There is no reason why Notre Dame should not be going 11-1. I think they could maybe lose on the road to BYU. I think that could be one of those trap games. BYU may be still a pretty good team. You're going down there the Provo time zones tricky, and maybe they get you. But I don't see, or it could just be they're undefeated and they lose to Miami. And I know college football's weird. I don't see a world where Notre Dame does not make the college football playoff with the schedule unless they just get hit with abundance of injuries. They're I think I just think they're set. They're I think that Notre Dame, veteran team, stacked team, they'll be really good. And I think they should be a team that should be considered for the obviously national championship race. Now, my one of my other teams, Texas. Let's talk about them. Texas, I had as a team that could be a national championship contender. Texas is very interesting because there's a lot of pressure. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them. Look, Sark, Arch Manning returns. I think they're better from a roster perspective than they were last year. They are a younger team. My only question would be their depth because they have a lot of young guys in those twos and threes in that position. And if you just look at their schedule here, I mean, look, you've got 3 games, and not even really three, you've got two. Texas State and UTSA. So you've really got 2 games to where you can really sort things out and then you're going. But those 2 games aren't even back to back. You got Texas State and then you got Ohio State. Week 4, you're going because I'm looking at the schedule here, and I do think Texas is going. I think them catching their stride at the end of last season and playing better, I think could bode well for this season too. And I think Arch Manning is ready to break out. And I think the way he played at the end of last season, I think he'll play well this season. But I'm looking at the schedule. Obviously, we just talked about the Ohio State in between those 2 games. Week 4, you're going at Tennessee, at Oklahoma, which I was considering Oklahoma. I I still got a lot of questions. Then you got Florida, who will be better. Ole Miss, the spoiler, they're one of my maybe teams. And then there's Mississippi State, you should win that at home. Missouri, you got to go to LSU. So you have to go to College Station. You have to go to Baton Rouge. You have to go to Mizzou, which is not easy. Yes, you get Ole Miss at home, but then you have Red River, and then you have to go to Tennessee. That's not in terms of the SEC schedule. That's rough. But I do think from a talent perspective, they're going to be able to do it. I do think they'll be probably the second best team behind Georgia, which they will. Georgia, we'll talk about them after this. But I think the only question I would have is the depth. I think 1 through 22, they're up there. They're probably the best, maybe in the country, 1 through 22. But then you get down to the twos and the threes. It's like, okay, there's a lot of guys there that haven't played a lot of meaningful football. And I bring that up because with now this season, it's so extended. You're going to January 26th this year. If you want to win a national championship, those guys are going to have to play meaningful snaps. They're going to have to play meaningful snaps and they're going to have to play well. The depth is a big question for me about Texas, but I do believe Sark's a great coach. I don't think they missed the playoff. Tough schedule. They probably go 10-2. Uh, and I think they probably and I think one of their losses. I mean, I think maybe they lose Red River. Maybe they lose on the road to LSU, one of those road games, but I do believe Texas is a national championship contender. And yeah, they're one of my contenders for this upcoming season. Speaking of the SEC, let's just jump straight. Georgia. Georgia, it's not a shocker. It's almost irresponsible to pick anybody other than Georgia in terms of being the best team in the SEC and being a potential championship contender at that point. At this point, you look at their schedule too. I like it. I think it's pretty. I mean, you've got some tough games in there, but overall, I think it's pretty. It's pretty decent, pretty favorable. I would I would say, but to me, it's just they have championship DNA, right? They're they obviously bring back Gunnar Stockton, they bring back Nate Frazier, Bowens, uh at the they're very good at the receiver position. They're also it's a very veteran team. They are young in the line of scrimmage, but they were young last year. So they're still young, and you got them extra years of experience. And on defense, I expect a Kirby Smart led defense, just or called defense, just to be very good, incredible. Gonna be able to stop the run. They're gonna be able to run the ball, stop the run, play man to man. I think Georgia they're almost in the spot where Alabama was, where I'm just saying they're it's almost irresponsible to not say they're a national championship contender coming into the year. Okay, now let's go to Ohio State. They're again one of the ones that they they return they return some key players on offense. They're also a team that's going to be a national championship contender every year based off the brand and based on Ryan Day being there. As long as they are still Ohio State and have a great coach in there, they're going to be a national championship contender. You bring back Julian Sayin, who who will be a sophomore this year, true freshman. He takes the experiences of last year. He comes into this year. I think Bo Jackson is going to be even better. And he's really gonna from week one, he's going to be the bell cow. You still have Jeremiah Smith as the number one receiver. Obviously, Carnell Tate, we'll see who steps into his role. You assume Brandon Ennis maybe steps into that role. But offensively, they bring a lot of guys back, key players. They're going to be good at the line of scrimmage, at the offensive line. The one thing that you would be concerned about if you're Ohio State is defensively. You lost that defense was incredible. No Caleb Downs this year. That's big. No Caden Curry, right? Who is making an impact. You lost a lot of guys defensively to the draft. And so they I would say there will be questions. They also brought a couple key guys back on defense, like a Jermaine Matthews Jr., right? Like a Kenyatta Jackson. So I I think Ohio State they have such a good system that you can almost just plug guys in. Again, last year, everybody and I know towards the end, right, they lost to 2 games, so people called them fraudulent. And okay, they had an easy schedule, wherever the case may be, but nobody expected them to go undefeated in the regular season last year. And say what you want, they were dominant. They were dominant in all of those games. And they ended up losing to the 2 teams that went to the national championship game and faced off. One of them ended up being undefeated. So I think look, you had we had questions last year. New quarter new last year. New coordinators, new quarterback, new running back. Your receiving core stays the same, but there's new guys on the offensive line. You look at the defense, look at how many guys they lost defensively on the line of scrimmage. And last year, they just continued to prove, like, look, we're Ohio State. We're going to be able to plug guys into our system, and they're going to be able to play well, and they're going to be able to play fast. And I think they're a national championship contender. Look, a lot of these teams have questions, right? Almost all of these teams going into the season have questions. Who answers the questions the best is going to determine how the season goes, obviously, for them in the trajectory of the season. So, yeah, I think Ohio State's going to be a contender. Next, you can't forget about Oregon. Oregon is going to be a national championship contending team. Oregon, to me, probably I could say might be the most deep team. Maybe. I I would probably call them the most deep team. I talk about Notre Dame bringing back a lot of their production. Oregon brings back a lot of their production. I mean, Dante Moore, we think he's going to go to the draft. He says no. He's going to stay and he's going to play another year here in college football. You look at the backs, Mackay Hughes, De'Aaron Hill. Yes, do they lose Malik Benson to the draft? Absolutely, but DeCorian Moore, it can easily take over that spot. Gonna be a stud. Evan Stewart is back. In terms of the trenches, they probably have the best defensive line in the country and one of the best offensive lines in the country. And so you look at that and you say, oh, okay, Oregon, you look at that and you say, Oregon, they are going to be a very good, they're going to be a very great football team. And you also look at it from this perspective. The defensive, their defensive backs, really good. They were really young last year, really good. And so I think you take the experiences of last year, you cope them with this year, with this upcoming year. I think Oregon has a chance to be a top three team in the country all year. And I think Oregon is just, they're going to be very, very good. Very, very good. And they're going to be one of my title contenders for the next upcoming year. How about the reigning defending national champions, the Indiana Hoosiers? I think Indiana will be a title contender as well. I don't think they go anywhere. You look at Indiana and you say, how can they do it again? I'm not gonna come out here and say they're gonna go 16-0. I don't think that. I mean, if they did, it'd be almost incredible. But that means they would have had lost a game in almost 3 years. So yeah, so I think they add Josh Hoover in the portal into the quarterbacks. In terms of their backs, yes, they did lose Black and Hemby to the NFL, so there'll be questions about them there. I think at wide receiver you add Nick Marshall, and you still have Charlie Becker there, right? In terms of the offensive line, I mean they return the Indiana are returning key pieces from the national championship team. they're returning a lot of key pieces. And they're returning some guys that maybe will get to play more that didn't play as much. You put that in with the transfer, you put that in with the transfer portal 4 stars and 5 stars that Indiana has, and some of the young guys that they've brought in as well. I don't see how Indiana's not a national championship contender again, especially under Kurt Signetti. That same staff is there. I don't think Indiana's going anywhere. I don't think they're leaving. I think they're going to be in that same exact spot in the Big Ten. One of the three, four best teams. Great, great coaching. This is probably, you can make the argument, maybe a more talented roster on paper, but yeah, I think Indiana is going to be a national title contender. Now to my maybes. Staying in the Big Ten, USC's a maybe. And the reason USC, I believe they are a maybe, is because look, you bring back Jaden Mayava, right? You have the number one recruiting class. You bring back a good portion of your roster from last year. I think USC is one of the most, they are a very interesting team from the standpoint of, if Lincoln Riley with this roster goes 9-3, I don't want to say he gets fired, but the unrest is there. I've said it. This could be the year for Lincoln Riley at USC. Number one recruiting class comes in, bringing back a lot of guys from last year. The you bring back the starting quarterback who played very well last year. You still have some questions about them defensively and how good they'll be. But other than that, and obviously the schedule, yeah, but honestly, I think they have a favorable schedule. And well, I won't say favorable, but I think the schedule, I think it helps them because early on, they don't, the first 4 weeks, they, they get to figure out, who who's going to play where, who's better here, who's better there. They just get to figure everything out. And then I don't want to say week 5, but their fifth game again, it's Oregon. Then it gets real. And they do have a tough schedule. Oregon, they have Oregon at home, at Penn State, they have Ohio State, go at Indiana. But if you go 2-1 in those three, or not 2-1, if you can go 3-1 in those four, you're in pretty good shape. 2-2 wouldn't be the worst thing. You would just have to win all of the rest of your games after that. But I really think USC could be one. They could be a championship contender. I like the roster makeup. Again, the one thing that I think is huge is continuity with this new NIL and transfer portal. That this is new. That's new. This new transfer portal NIL. That's a big thing. Continuity is what you have to have, whether it's college football, college basketball, and college athletics. I think having that continuity from a year before and meshing those guys in, you have to have the perfect storm of that. Indiana had it last year. Ohio State had it the year before that. I think Michigan had it the year before that. So, yeah, I think you have to have that perfect continuity. I was just pointing that out. Now, another maybe. I go Miami. I'm hot. I go Miami because they return a lot of their offensive pieces. I like I like Darren Minta, who they brought in, and I think he's going to be really good. My question: the trenches. That's why I put them in the maybe. The trenches. You lose Ruben Bain to the draft, Akeem Mesidor to the draft, the uh Marigoa, Francois Marigoa to the draft. I'm very interested to see because they did have a lot of veterans on that squad, right? And look, they're in the ACC. There's no reason why they should not be in the. There's no reason why they should not be in the ACC championship this upcoming year. I'm gonna just be honest. There's no reason for that. That they should not be in the ACC championship game this year. Mario Cristobal, I think they've got it rolling. They bring back Mark Fletcher as well. Malachi Tony, like this. Obviously, the reason why I have them as a maybe is because don't know what the line of scrimmage is going to look like, right? But I do think Mario Cristobal can get can mesh that together. Former offensive lineman, I think he'll get the right offensive line combination, still get able to work. And I think, look, if Miami gets it rolling again, they could be another top 5 team. They could be very dangerous as a championship contender. And my last maybe, Ole Miss. I say Ole Miss as a maybe. Pete Golding first year as an actual head coach. Don't know what the defense is going to look like, but they bring back Trinidad Chambliss, who's incredible. They bring back Keywan Lacey. They have a lot of questions in terms of who is calling the plays, but I think Ole Miss having that quarterback and having a majority, I think, of that offense really come back, I think is going to help them. Now, you're in this SEC that's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath. We already have the week 3 games. We already have the week 3 games scheduled, circled, where they play LSU. But obviously, they started the season with Louisville. They have LSU. They have to go to Florida. They have to go to Vandy. They have to go to Texas. They have Georgia at home. They have to go to Oklahoma. So it's a hard schedule, but I do believe Ole Miss can be a contender based off of the fact I think Trinidad Chambliss could be the best college quarterback in the best college quarterback, not NFL, but best college quarterback. And I think you have Keywan Lacey with that run game. I think they're a very dynamic, high scoring, dangerous team that can control the clock when they want to and can score in big plays when they want to. And I think if they can get the defense to be somewhat above average to even good, I think they're a dangerous team this upcoming year. All right, everybody. This has been an episode of the Don't Argue with the Facts podcast. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until the next time, see ya.